There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean, Breeze Books. Welcome back to my channel and another Friday Reads. It's a gray, cool day, so I decided to stay indoors, and so you've just got the gray background in my living room for this quick and dirty setup. And Charlie's here making a little bit of noise, so I think he's going to go bug Kenji, who's still sleeping off a very early morning doctor's appointment for us both. And here I am. So life is still beautiful. What can I tell you? Maybe the only thing interesting that happened this week, there must be more than that I'm forgetting, but very important to me as a reader, I have found my new favorite cafe. There's only one cafe in the neighborhood, which, unless you count Dairy Queen, and I like some Dairy Queen food, but it wouldn't be my first choice of place to go sit and read contemplatively. But there is one very close to it that is Chinese run, and I noticed it about a month ago and hadn't had a chance to go. So Kenji and I went yesterday, and we both loved it. They have booths with benches that are comfortable for my back, which is a rare find, and it's just got a lovely ambiance. Right above us, there was a bulletin board where people on a little card could draw or write messages to the cafe staff. It's a very friendly vibe. And in fact, the young Chinese woman that served us at the counter said, no, she wasn't Japanese. I just had to ask because I could get away with it because my Japanese husband was beside me and I had a purpose. But she said, we have many regular Japanese customers. That's the first I've heard that there are Japanese people living in this neighborhood, because if they're regular, they must live here. I said, he wants to meet them someday. That was good. But we sat there, I read, Kenji played games or something. The only drawback was that there were two young white women, shall I say, sitting right behind me. And they had been friends and were estranged, and this was their first meeting since to heal the estrangement, which seemed, from what I couldn't help hearing, had been at least a year, if not longer. And they were processing that and talking rather loudly, and it was moderately interesting, but it prevented me from really sinking deep into my book. So next time I'll take my headphones. But I loved that place, so I'll be going there often. I mentioned last week that there was a Patreon book giveaway, Alberta and Jacob by Cora Sandel, translated from the Norwegian by Elizabeth Rokkan, and I had that draw on Patreon at 6 p.m. last night, and the winner was Laura in Finland. Congratulations, Laura. I'll be getting that book out to her in the mail soon and have another giveaway later on this year. So that's all my news. Let's meet this week's mystery guest, and oh boy, are they going to entertain you. And this week's mystery guest is the Saskatchewan writer Candace Kirkpatrick, author of the debut novel Crows and Cupcake, which came out last year in 20...
Crows and Cheesecake?
What did I say?
Cupcake.
I almost want to leave that in because that's funny. Of the debut novel Crows and Cheesecake, which came out last year, 2024. Joining us today from her home near North Battleford, Saskatchewan, Candace Kirkpatrick. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sean. It's nice to be here.
It's wonderful to meet you. I found out about you because you came to Saskatoon to do a reading in March, I believe, and I missed it. And I think that's what got you on my radar. So I'm really delighted that we're having this conversation. Crows and Cheesecake has a fascinating premise, a premise of particular interest to me as a reader. I tend to seek out fiction about women and the aging process, older women protagonists. So please introduce us to Crows and Cheesecake, Candace.
Crows and Cheesecake. Crows and Cheesecake was born as a contest entry. We were given the first and last paragraphs of a short story and had to write 28 paragraphs in between. And a challenge like that, I really embrace. I love that. And it turned out that the first paragraph had a woman who was traveling on her own. The last paragraph had a crow in it. And I wrote 28 paragraphs in between, and my characters were born. I didn't win the contest. I didn't come second or honorable mention or anything like that, but it really was what caused the book to happen. I couldn't get the characters out of my head. They were just stuck.
That's incredible. And who put that contest on?
That was Owl Canyon Press in the States. Every once in a while, when I see something that's on. And like I say, something really unique like that. I embrace it. And it gets the juices flowing, obviously.
Tell us more about your protagonist and the opening premise of the story.
The protagonist is Nadine Bennett. Nadine Bennett is really, she's Natty. I'm a great believer in that the name or nickname you are called very definitely influences you. She is definitely a Natty. She is, for all intents and purposes, me, because I am aging. And as I'm aging, I'm finding out that I'm labeled. I became a senior when I was 60, and that's many years ago. All of a sudden, I was not only labeled as a senior, oh, you get the senior's discount or whatever it happened to be, but I was also beginning to be treated like a senior. And I wasn't ready for that. And I began to think about the stereotyping that goes on constantly. And it bothers me. It's not the age. I don't care how old I am. It's the fact that I haven't lost my decision-making process. I haven't lost my love of life. I haven't lost my spontaneity. And I wanted to show that through Natty. She led me along. Part of it the way I wanted to be, and part of the way I am.
And Natty was a divorcee, and she was single for a couple decades, and then she met her true love. How does that shape the development of your story?
Very much. She still has a number of years following that. She met her second husband. I don't necessarily like or use the word soulmate, but it was immediate. They knew they were going to have a relationship that would be honest, and what they both looked for. They were only married for 8 years, and then the bugger went and died on her.
The bugger.
The bugger. And it really did shape the rest of her life, because she had to learn how to grieve. In that process, her family decided she wasn't able to look after herself. She was more than capable of looking after herself. She wasn't acting out or anything like that, but they decided that she should move. Reluctantly, she went to look at a few places, and if her house hadn't been falling apart and in need of a lot of repairs, she probably would never have left. And that really determined the rest of her life.
And so at this time, she would have been like pushing 70, right?
She would have been, yes.
Yeah. A healthy 70-year-old?
Oh, absolutely. Had her garden space.
Is it set close to the present day?
You know what? Yes, it has to be, because people are telling me, oh my gosh, that's me, or oh my gosh, that's my mom. Yes.
The women in my family, like my mom is 82 and she's much healthier than I am. She's going to outlive us all. And when she was 70, she was just a powerhouse.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Nadine, her family, her kids had other ideas.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, my background with my mother really has played into it, in that when my dad died, Mom was 58, still teaching school and doing well in her small town. We decided that it would be a good idea for Mom to move to the city, where one of us, happened to be me, was located, another one close by. And Mom took part in the conversation, but never argued. And I wish I could go back. I know now that it was for us as much or more than it was for Mom to move her. My mom was healthy, educated, like I say, a teacher in a small town, knew everyone, had all of her hobbies and everything there. And when she moved, she made a home, and within a year, I could see her declining. We took her spirit. We took the students in the summer that came back for a visit, knocking at her door with a bouquet of peonies from their mom's garden. We took her bridge club, her 6-by-8 garden plot in her backyard and her daily walk to the post office. We took all of those things from her. And because of that, I really felt it was critical that I attempt to get this through.
And so she goes into an old folks' home, a senior's home.
Yes, and I differentiate. And I also want to make it very clear that these homes are very necessary. And a lot of people are there because that's where they want to finish out the rest of their lives.
Yes.
But there are a number. And since I wrote this book, I have met a number of them who are not happy being there, who don't want to have to be at supper at 5:30. And who have no interest in bingo. And I'm not putting them down, but it's not their place. And when Natty moved there, being told that she'd be able to live her own life, she'd be able to make her own decisions, and very quickly was being questioned about things, her vibrant personality getting her into trouble. She began to realize she was losing herself and knew that if she stayed, that her daughter would become the one saying, you stay, you go, you do this and you do that. And it was not her. So she ran away.
And probably that's all we're going to talk about in terms of where the plot goes. The reader can discover the rest. I can't wait to read this book. I haven't read the book, obviously. But would you say that the staff at the seniors' home would you use the term elder abuse? And if it is elder abuse, is it the family? Is it the staff? Is it both? How dark does this get? How dark does her experience get before she runs away?
It does not.
Okay.
She is, as with any life or any situation like that, the staff have certain things that they have to do. They can't accommodate everyone for their tastes or their time. No, I would not say elder abuse, but I believe that she was treated by the staff the same way as she had by her daughter. They made her decisions for her. And Natty could have been 90 and as young at heart as she was when she moved there. No, it does not get dark.
It doesn't go.
Yeah, in fact, it goes the opposite way. It gets extremely enlightening and positive.
So that's the part that we're not going to go into any detail about and how the story ends. I'm thinking of so many books I've read. One is a British novel published, I don't know if it was published in the 30s, 40s, 50s, but it's by Vita Sackville-West. What is it called? All Passion Spent. Do you know that one?
No, I don't.
I think you'll find it fascinating. It's about an elderly woman. I think she's about 80 or 85 or something like that. 88, I think I have in my head. And her husband was a former prime minister of the United Kingdom, and he dies. And she's a widow, and her children, who are all in their 70s, now are deciding what to do with Mama. And she rejects all of their ideas and moves to a little house in the country and creates a new life for herself. It's really wonderful. So I'm thinking about that as I hear you talk. One of the best books I read last year, if you haven't read, I really hope you will, because I'd like to talk about it with you, is by a British Columbia writer. Her name is Wendy Burton, and her novel is called Ivy's Tree.
Mm.
And it was published by Thistledown Press here in Saskatoon, but she has no other connection to Saskatoon or Saskatchewan. It's about an elderly widow in Vancouver whose husband was a benign paternalistic presence in her life. She never had written a check. She'd never paid the power bill, but he was a loving husband and he died and she was left alone. Her daughter, who had been living in Tokyo with a Japanese husband and kids for years, and Ivy had a rocky relationship with her, picked up the phone and said, Mom, there's nothing there for you now. Come and live with us. And she's so passive. She sells the house and moves to Tokyo. And then that story is abuse via neglect. It's a story of the elderly. with a really affirming ending. It's one of the best books I read last year. I loved it so much, and I hope you'll read it someday. What you're telling me makes me think of it.
I absolutely will, Sean.
I interviewed her for a full-length 40-minute interview. I'll send you the link after we finish this. Anyway, so this is a topic very near and dear to my heart. I grew up in a family of strong women. In fact, my biography is unusual that I had 3 grandmothers who lived into their 80s and 90s. My one grandma, 101. I'm a big fan of older ladies. Always have been, always will be. Why is it called Crows and Cheesecake?
Partly because of that particular contest that I entered. The crows are mentioned throughout my story that I wrote in the last paragraph, which I had to use. And the cheesecake, you know how you have a friend and you haven't seen them in a while, so you're going to visit them, and they absolutely love your chocolate chip cookies. So you would make them, you would make chocolate chip cookies. And it's something that is special to both of you in different ways. And so the cheesecake throughout the book becomes that gift of love. Yeah. I've been asked a number of times, well, that's an unusual cookbook. It humors me a lot. No, crows are not on the menu.
You live on an acreage near North Battleford. Tell me about you and crows. Are you dealing with crows on a regular basis there?
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you asked that question. Our acreage really doesn't have the type of trees that crows prefer close by. But of course, we see them fly over and hear them. I wrote the book, and the book was in my hand right around the beginning of May last year. We were sleeping one morning about 5 a.m, and we heard a terrible racket outside, banging on the window, on the patio window, out of bed. And what is going on? When we opened the patio curtains, 2 crows flew off, and the window had white phlegm almost on it, spots of blood. We had absolutely no idea what was happening. So I cleaned the window and everything's fine. It wasn't fine. Day after day, week after week, this went on. Not always at exactly the same time in the morning, but very early before we were up. And then it started happening at our bedroom window. They would come to the bedroom window and they were cawing and cawing all the time. I've looked it up, and there can be various reasons for it. There's a plant inside. They couldn't see inside the window when this was happening, or they're trying to get your attention for some particular reason. I have no idea, but I'm the type of person that, like I said, maybe we just had said the word crows so many times since the 1st of May. They're very intelligent birds.
Strange.
2 other things happened. I found a dime in the garden, which I've been gardening for 8 years, just me. Shortly after that, I found this shiny piece of silver paper. And you know about crow booty, I assume.
Yep.
Yes, and crow booty figures quite predominantly in the book.
Okay.
So my relationship with crows, and in fact, I had one of my readers say to me, I never used to think much of crows, but now every time I see them, I smile. And my relationship with crows has changed. This year, we only have had a couple of times at the window, but we have them on our patio, right close to our house, with 2 of them, one on one side, one on the other, cawing at each other and bobbing up and down. I feel honored that for whatever reason, they have chosen to let us know. We know you, we want you to know we're here, and we know that you're there.
That's wonderful. I'm an ESL teacher, and I'm teaching a reading class to a student who lives in Japan on Zoom. And together we're reading an article from the New York Times about a woodpecker in Massachusetts that was smashing the side windows of cars and trucks with its beak. The theory is that they were seeing their reflection in the mirror and viewed it as their beautiful, handsome rival. So it was attacking the rival and smashing all through the town.
Yeah. That's another theory as well. My daughter came to visit us about 3 weeks into this, and thank goodness we told her what was happening. At the same time in the morning, they started at her window as if they knew that she was sleeping in the spare bedroom. By the time I got up to see what was going on, she was standing at the patio window and said, "Mom, I am so glad you told me about that." It becomes frightening at the beginning, but
Are you a bird person?
yes, I have become more so.
I don't usually talk so much about my own recommendations, but I have to recommend one more to you. It is a translated novel from the German, but it's set in Scotland at a laird's country estate that he has converted into a bed and breakfast or something. There's a peacock on the property that raises a ruckus, and it's the central aspect of the story. That's all I'm going to say. The author is Isabel Bogdan, and it was translated into English by Annie Rutherford. It's funny and not only funny. It's called The Peacock. And the Peacock is not the main character, but is a central character. So you might enjoy that.
Sean, I should add about the title. I am so glad that I used that. I came up with a concept for the front of the book, and my husband carved the crow that is on the front of the book. I painted it. When I'm at trade shows, I notice people walking by. You know how trade shows, they always walk in the middle of the aisle because they don't want to commit. And that's pretty much what a trade show is. They'll be walking in the middle of the aisle and they'll stop and look. And all of a sudden you'll see them going, "Rose and cheesecake." And they come over and they have to find out what this is all about. Anybody in the writing community during the time that I was in the process of writing this have all said that is a fabulous title. And I'm a title person. I fought for that because Rhys wanted, they offer you their covers. I said, no, it's got to be this. So it's worked really well.
That's wonderful. Cheesecake. Are you an extraordinary cheesecake chef or whatever the word would be?
No, I'm a consumer.
Consumer? Do you have a favorite kind of cheesecake?
I do make a cherry cheesecake that my husband loves, but I can't say that it's anything but just that. My wife made it and it's good.
That's great. What are you working on now, Candace?
Well, I've been asked if I'm going to do a sequel, and a sequel doesn't work well. And you'll see that when you read the book. But I still want to, okay. It's called, tentatively, Tales from the Chair, from BS to BS, meaning barbershop to beauty salon. I absolutely adore going to the hairdressers and the conversations that take place. Having been around a barbershop, it's like the old guys at coffee every morning. I love the conversations. They're short, they're to the point, they're gossipy. It's going to be quite different though, because I have a story that I want to tell. It's very important to me to get this story out. So all of the conversations at the various barbershops and beauty salons have something to do with my story. And every second chapter will be my story. I like the idea. It's got a lot of humor in it, naturally. That's basically what I'm working on right now.
Don't forget about me when it comes closer to being published. I want to interview you even before your pub date.
I've made a note of it.
That's great. You also are a playwright. You wrote a play that won an award. The play is called Predeceased By, and it won the Best New Play at Theatre Fest in Oxbow, Saskatchewan. Tell us about Predeceased By.
I will tell you about Predeceased By, and then I will tell you the humor in that particular accolade.
Okay.
Yes, this was many years ago when I was in Moose Jaw and I was connected with community players. I wrote a lot of plays. I wrote little plays for youth group that we would perform. And this one we took as a group and performed it in Oxbow. It's the story of a family and the father passes away, the siblings and their different reactions to this, the obvious extreme grief from one of them, and acceptance, total acceptance from another, and another who cannot put her father's death first before herself. And so brings that out in the play. And you know what? I could tell you the whole story and you will never have seen this play. It was performed once in Oxbow. So when I was going through the process with Rhys Press, they had given me an editor's words for the back of the book. And it just wouldn't work. It was, she broke through the chains that she was bound by. And I thought, oh no, we can't do that. So they asked questions. So I answered the questions. What about this? Have you won any awards? I got thinking, so I went to my bookshelf. I call it my shelves of good intentions. And I went there and I started looking up the bios. And everybody was like things like really prestigious, the Giller Prize or runner-up for the Giller Prize or this or that or whatever. And even if it wasn't that, they've written 8 books. So I thought, I haven't won any prizes. I kept thinking, oh, I better come up with something. So I thought about this prize that I got at Oxbow. I wrote down that I won Best New Author. That's exactly what happened. We won no prizes for acting or anything. It was the end of the evening, and the adjudicator got up and spoke to the audience. He said, I had a conversation with the group here, and I asked them to create another prize for tonight, another award, Best New Author. And it was me. And it was like, woohoo! And what it provided me at the time was a trip to Saskatoon to the Saskatchewan playwrights. And they critiqued it and they had a small performance, not for the public, but just performed the play in front of me. It was fabulous.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And it isn't that I never went anywhere with it. I have 2 more plays in my head that I would absolutely love to embrace, but I just can't right now. I just not quite there. But so anyway, here I am, award-winning playwright. I had a lady ask me the other day where she can see my play in Saskatchewan. Anyway, I'm quite fine relating that story because it just goes to show.
You just need somebody to create an award that suits you to a T. Has it been published? No. It should be. Yeah. And now I'd like to hear a little bit about Candace Kirkpatrick, the reader. What book recommendations do you have for us?
I don't think this is going to put me in a good light. I treat movies and books exactly the same. I will read a book from beginning to end, close the cover, and not remember the next week what the characters' names were, how they related. Oh, it's really, yeah. I belong to a book club and I stay silent lots of times because these ladies are wonderful at their renditions of their read. I'm the same with movies. The credits come up and we're walking to the car and I'm going, what was his name in the movie? There are some that have stayed with me. I can't say I'm a Stephen King fan. That's not fair because I've read only one Stephen King's books. But it's the genre. I'm not into the horror, into the fantasy so much. I read The Dead Zone about 5 years ago. Unlike other Stephen Kings I tried to read, I got past the 3rd chapter and past the 6th, read it all the way to the end, and I was just stunned. And I opened the book to see when it was written, and I could not believe that it was written in 1979 because it was read by me after Trump got elected for his first term in the States. That was the story I was reading. All of a sudden, Stephen King, what a brilliant man. And his book, Stephen King on Writing, is one of the best I have ever read. It is personable. It really is a wonderful read as well as very enlightening. Another one that I read through the book club, actually, it's called Indians on Vacation by Thomas King. Yes. And I loved it. I loved his humor, the way he looks at the world. It was a wonderful read. I recommended it to a number of people. And then a nonfiction that we also read through book club. It's called Being Mortal. And
Atul Gawande or something?
yeah, I was trying to think of his first name, Gawande. He's a doctor, a geriatric doctor. And it was one of the most enlightening books that I'd ever read about Alzheimer's, ways of being involved with it. I told my daughters about it at the time, and this was quite a number of years ago. I said to them, I think it's really important for you to read this. As I age, I would like to know that you had read this and that you considered some of these concepts.
Those are great recommendations. I am curious because I have my own history with book clubs, and I hear about people complaining about and celebrating book clubs with all the readers in my life. How does your book club, how do you choose your books?
Oh, that's interesting because we're struggling with that right now.
Okay.
They have been chosen for us by the library. They get lists of recommendations. That has worked well, but we're starting to feel like we want more of a voice in how we choose them. It's interesting that you say that because I've been to a number of readings, and when I'm there with a book club, I ask them exactly the same question. One of them has made it a point of reading a book written by an author from every province and territory, which is fascinating. And they've come up with some very good titles. One chooses their books for 6 months in advance. My granddaughter, she's 21, in university, busy. She and a group of her friends, same age or younger, decided that they were going to start a book club. And what they've done is each one has recommended a book and put it on a piece of paper. And at the first meeting, they picked the paper, and that's the book they're going to read.
Random.
And they have decided to purchase the books because they want to start libraries. There's all different kinds, and we feel like there's been a lot of repetition, and we want to expand and still please everybody as well as we can.
Great. I hear from a good friend of mine that her book club, half the people don't read the book. They just want to come and drink wine and chat about their lives.
Yeah.
And that drives her crazy because she wants to talk about the book.
Yeah.
I was a member of a gay men's book club in Toronto. I was 25 or 28, and the other members were much older. And a new member came into the group, and nobody liked him. I liked him. I could see why he would be irritating for some people, but I could see that. But without that guy, they met me for coffee and said, can we disband the book club and then secretly reconfigure without him? Can we do that? And I said, you guys, that's so immature. No way. I'm not going to allow it. So yeah, book club can be interesting.
Oh, it can be. And honestly, it was my savior when I moved here to North Battleford. Moving to a new town when you're almost, I think I was 67 when I moved here. It is very difficult to make friends. I volunteered at a place here in town for a while. I got on the board of one of the organizations here. I'd been on boards before. I didn't bulldoze my way in, but I got on the board. And I just find that the circles are already established. I understand that people are older. They've got the people that they go for coffee with all the time. Finally, I joined the book club. I was the new one, but that everybody else, well, and so finally I said, would it be possible, this didn't happen, so would it be possible to have everybody say their names? Oh, we don't do that. It just threw me off, but I didn't give up, realizing finally, thank goodness, that it was more one person's decision than everybody's, and that smoothed out. I have made very good friends. That's the only place. Now I can actually go grocery shopping and occasionally see someone who says, hi, Candace. And I go, oh, hi. That didn't happen for many years.
I moved back to the city of my birth 3 years ago and hadn't lived here since the 1990s. I'm close to 60, and it has been really hard to make friends. I don't want to join a book club because I want complete control over what I read at all times. I'm not willing to give that up again.
No, I'm getting back there too. I'm a very slow reader. And so the book club book, that's my monthly read.
So to wrap up this incredible conversation, Candace, the best way that I can express how much I've enjoyed this is to say, I would love to be in a book club with you. Maybe it happen on Zoom.
Yeah. Sometimes I leave home and think, don't talk so much tonight, Candace.
Oh no, this has been exquisite. Candace, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back.
Absolutely.
Crows and Cheesecakes sounds right up my alley, and I can't wait to get my hands on a copy and read it. It's available on online booksellers, I think, around the world, and you can also order it direct from the publisher, which I forgot to say in the chat. So I'll put a link to how you can order it directly from the publisher, which I found was the most affordable way to get it, actually, depending on shipping charges, which wouldn't be as bad for me here because it's a prairie publisher. All right. I edited and posted my review of The Language of Remembering by Patrick Holloway this week, so that's what I've got up, and it was a wonderful novel, and you need to hear a little bit more about it, and especially hear me read from it, and that's going to sell you 100%, so check that out. It's a very short review, 10 minutes, uncharacteristically brief. I just took Charlie out for a walk, so he's had most of his central needs met, but he's still looking rather sad that I'm ignoring him. He's pouting on the love seat beside me. Charlie. Okay, I have not finished anything, so this is going to be a short Friday reads, but I can tell you that I'm 20 pages into Wild Sargasso Sea by Rhys and loving it. I'm very familiar with her prose, and it is just singing already. I don't know if there's a time other than that it's meant to resonate or be a prequel of sorts or something to Jane Eyre, so it's probably 19th century Jamaica. The main character, the narrator, is a young Martinique Jamaican, if I can put it that way. Her mother came to Jamaica from Martinique, and they were abandoned. I don't know yet if the father died or just abandoned the family, but she and her mother are alone on a vast estate. I haven't quite put it all together what the social economic status, but it doesn't seem like they're dirt poor, but they don't have any resources, and the mother's mental health is starting to, because of her isolation, for possibly only for that, but maybe other reasons, is deteriorating, and it's got a definitely more, I would say, Wuthering Heights vibe so far in terms of there's an eeriness in the atmosphere, and it's just lovely. So that's all I have to say about that, but I'm looking forward to chatting with Sarah Kay of the Fabulous Book Podcast, the Bookcast Club, next month. I'm going to be starting two things. The first thing is a short story on audio. Joe Smith and I, we're not currently buddy reading anything, although we are going to start another one soon, fairly soon, I think. She and I keep in touch quite regularly, and she wouldn't mind me telling you that she has been reading, or has recently finished reading, a collection of short fiction by Sylvia Townsend Warner. I will try to find out what the title is and put the GIF up there. And she hadn't been particularly aware, nor had I, that Sylvia Townsend Warner wrote a lot of short stories. And she said they were just wonderful. And so I said, if we can find one that wasn't in that collection, that we could just have a buddy read of one story, why don't we do that? And so she found one. I think it wasn't in the collection she's read. It was printed in the New Yorker in 1961, I want to say. Yep, 1961. It's called Truth and Fiction by Sylvia Townsend Warner, and it was read on the New Yorker Fiction Podcast, which you probably know. It's one of the best literary podcasts out there because they bring writers on the show to read a story that had been at some point published in the New Yorker, and then they discuss it. And so the reader and interlocutor with Deborah Treisman is Elif Batuman. She's Turkish. Isn't she Turkish or is she Greek? I have never read her. But anyway, and so we're going to listen to that and discuss it on the weekend. I'm looking forward to that. So if you want to also listen, I might have a few things to say about it next weekend. And because I bailed on the buddy read with Joe and Heidi, I've set up shorter buddy reads with each of them to compensate. Heidi of My Reading Life and I have long wanted to read the second book of Sharon Butala's memoirs. And this one is called Where I Live Now, A Journey Through Love and Loss to Healing and Hope. Just knowing Sharon as I do, I think she would have not really loved that subtitle, but that's what it's subtitled. Charlie, you be quiet. And we're going to check in on the... Oh, I can't get him to be quiet, so sorry, people. I hope you can hear me over him. We're going to check in on the first bit on Monday, so I'm going to get started on that on the weekend. Oh, speaking of Sharon, Kenji and I and Mum met Sharon Butala for lunch yesterday. And here's a picture, lovely picture of her and my mum. Kenji said they look like sisters, and they really do. and me and Kenji. Those of you who managed to stay awake until the very end of this video get that extra little treat. Woohoo! That is that. Thank you so much for watching.